Before the body falls asleep, the mind often wanders, not into dreams, but into questions. Who can be trusted? What is safety? And why do gentle words sometimes lead to harm? Tonight, we will not answer these questions directly. Instead, we will walk slowly through a forest and listen, far from the reach of cities, where human voices dissolve into distance. There existed a vast and breathing jungle. It was not silent. It was never silent. Even in stillness, life whispered. Leaves shifted without wind. Creatures moved without being seen. And somewhere, always, something was watching. At the center of this jungle, there ruled a lion. His name was Madotkata. He was not merely strong. He was certainty. When he walked, the ground seemed to remember. When he roared, the air itself trembled. No creature questioned his authority, not because they were told to obey, but because resistance had long ago disappeared. Yet even a king does not stand alone. Around Madotkata gathered a small circle of companions, a leopard, silent and precise, a jackal, watchful, calculating, a crow, sharp-eyed, ever observing, and others, less visible, but no less dependent. They followed him, not out of loyalty alone, but because in his strength they found survival. When the lion hunted, they ate. When the lion rested, they waited. When the lion decided, they agreed. This was the balance of the jungle. Clear, simple, unquestioned, until the day something unfamiliar appeared. It was late afternoon. The light had softened. Shadows stretched long across the ground, as if the forest itself were exhaling. Madotkata and his companions moved slowly through the undergrowth, not hunting, just wandering, observing. Then the lion stopped, not suddenly, not with alarm, but with curiosity. In the distance, partially hidden among low trees, stood a creature none of them had seen before. Tall, unusual, its neck rose like a bending branch. Its legs were long and uncertain, and instead of hunting, it ate grass. The jungle paused. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. Madotkata narrowed his gaze, not with hunger, but with interest. "What is that creature?" he asked, his voice low and steady. Before anyone else could speak, the crow tilted its head slightly. Its eyes, always searching, always knowing more than it revealed, focused on the distant figure. "My king," the crow said softly, "that is a camel." The word itself did not belong to the jungle. It comes from human lands. It lives among villages. It carries burdens. And the crow paused, just briefly. Its flesh is said to be rich. The words drifted into the air, light, almost casual, but they did not disappear. The jackal's ears twitched. The leopard remained still, and for a moment, something changed. not in the jungle, but in intention. The lion did not move, did not lunge, did not react as expected. Instead, he spoke again. "It is not of this forest." His voice was calm, measured. "It is not prey." The crow remained silent, but its eyes did not. "It has entered our land without understanding it," the lion continued, "and because of that, it is not an enemy." There was a pause, a long one. "Bring it to me," Madotkata said at last, "but do not harm it." The words settled, clear, final. It is a guest, and in the jungle, that word carried weight. Trust rarely begins with deception. It begins with relief. Far from the center of the jungle, where the trees grew thinner and the ground softened into patches of grass, the camel stood alone. He had not always been alone. Once there had been voices, human voices, commands, laughter, movement, the steady rhythm of footsteps beside him, the weight of goods upon his back, the long, endless roads that stretched beyond the horizon. But now there was only silence. He had wandered too far, or perhaps he had been left behind. At first, he had waited, listening, hoping, turning his long neck again and again toward every distant sound. But no one came. The jungle did not welcome him. It did not reject him either. It simply continued. The grass was unfamiliar, but it was food. The air was heavy, but it was breathable. The sounds were strange, but they did not yet harm him. So he stayed, not out of comfort, but because there was nowhere else to go. When the crow approached, the camel did not run. He had never learned to fear in the way jungle creatures did. His world had been different, predictable, structured. The crow circled above him once, then again, observing, measuring. "Strange creature," the crow called down, its voice light, almost curious. "Why do you stand here alone?" The camel lifted his head slowly. His eyes were tired, not from effort, but from uncertainty. "I was traveling with humans," he replied, his voice calm, though something beneath it trembled. "We crossed long distances, carried many things." Then he paused. "I do not know when I became separated." The crow landed nearby, not too close, not too far. "The jungle is not like the world you knew," it said. There are rules here. The camel nodded slowly. I have begun to understand that. Above them, the light shifted. The day was moving forward. Time, as always, did not wait. You cannot remain alone, the crow continued. Alone, you will not survive here. There was no threat in its voice, only certainty. The camel lowered his gaze slightly, not in submission, but in thought. What should I do? He asked. The question came easily, too easily, and once spoken, it changed everything. Because the moment one asks for guidance, one becomes open to direction. The crow tilted its head as if considering, though the answer had already formed long before the question was asked. Our king rules this jungle, it said at last. He is powerful, he is just. There was a measured pause, and he protects those who stand under his authority. The camel listened carefully. Protection. The word lingered. It was not something he had known, not truly. Even among humans, his life had not been protected, only used, directed, driven forward. But protection, that sounded different. Will he accept me? The camel asked. The crow did not answer immediately. It let the silence stretch just enough. Then, if you come in peace and speak honestly, it spread its wings slightly. You will be received. There was no promise, but it sounded like one. The jackal and the leopard had been watching from a distance, silent, still. They stepped forward now, slowly, deliberately. The camel turned toward them. For a brief moment, something flickered in his awareness, instinct, but it passed because nothing in their movement suggested danger. The jackal lowered its head slightly, a gesture that resembled respect. You are safe among us, it said softly. Safe. The word settled deep inside the camel, and without realizing it, he accepted it. Come, the crow said. The king is waiting. The camel hesitated, only for a moment. Behind him, there was nothing. Ahead, there was uncertainty, but also something else. Structure, direction, possibility. And so, he took a step forward, then another, and slowly, without resistance, without suspicion, he followed them, not knowing that trust, once given freely, can be the most dangerous offering of all. The deeper one walks into the jungle, the quieter it becomes, not because there is less life, but because everything is paying attention. The camel followed in silence, step after step, his long legs moving carefully over unfamiliar ground. Roots twisted beneath him, shadows shifted beside him. Every sound seemed closer here, sharper, more deliberate. Ahead, the crow guided. Behind, the jackal and the leopard moved without a sound, not rushing, not pressing, just present. It did not feel like being hunted. It felt like being escorted. And that difference, though subtle, meant everything. The trees grew taller, thicker, their branches intertwined above, blocking out much of the sky. Light filtered through in broken fragments, falling across the ground like scattered gold. Then they stopped. At first, the camel did not understand why. Then he saw him, resting in the shade of an ancient tree whose roots rose from the earth like coiled stone, was the lion, Madotkata. He was still, completely still, and yet the space around him felt full, not with movement, but with presence. The air itself seemed to change, heavier, denser, as though even silence carried weight here. The camel felt it immediately, not fear, not yet, but something deeper, awareness. He lowered his head slightly, not because he had been told to, but because something within him understood. This was not just another creature. This was something that shaped the space around it. The crow stepped forward first. "My king," it said softly, "we have brought the one we spoke of." Madotkata opened his eyes slowly. They did not search. They did not scan. They simply rested on the camel. And in that gaze, there was no hurry, no hunger, no aggression, only observation. The camel felt seen, completely. For a brief moment, he forgot his fear. "Come closer," the lion said. The voice was deep, not loud, but it did not need to be. The camel stepped forward, once, then again. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of danger, but because of importance. He stopped at a respectful distance, lowered his head further. "I greet you," he said quietly. Madotkata studied him, not as prey, not as threat, but as something new. "You do not belong to this jungle," the lion said. It was not a question. "No," the camel replied. "I came from human lands. Why are you here?" The question was simple, but beneath it, something waited. The camel hesitated, only slightly. "I was separated," he said. "I do not know how." The lion did not respond immediately. He let the silence remain, not uncomfortable, not tense, just present. Then, "You are alone." Again, not a question. "Yes." The word felt heavier than expected. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the lion spoke again. "If you return to human lands, you will carry burdens again." Images flickered in the camel's mind. Weight, heat, endless walking. If you remain here, the lion paused. There is grass, there is space. Another pause, and under my protection, his voice softened slightly. You will not be harmed. The words settled slowly. Protection. Again. But this time, it came from something powerful, something unquestioned. The camel lifted his head slightly. May I stay? He asked. It was not a demand, not even a request. It was hope. The lion looked at him for a long moment. Then, you may stay. Simple, clear, final. You are under my protection. And with those words, the jungle changed. Not outwardly, not visibly, but in meaning. The camel was no longer lost, no longer wandering. He belonged, and sometimes belonging can feel like safety. Days passed, not quickly, not slowly, but with a quiet rhythm that required no effort to follow. The camel remained in the jungle. At first, he moved carefully, every step measured, every sound observed, but nothing happened. No sudden attacks, no hidden threats. No shifting dangers waiting to reveal themselves. Only routine. Each morning, light filtered gently through the leaves. Soft, diffused, never harsh. The camel would walk through open patches of grass, eating, resting, drifting. There was no weight on his back, no commands. No urgency, only space. And for the first time in his life, time did not push him forward. It simply existed. At a distance, the others moved within their own patterns. The leopard hunted alone, silent, efficient. The crow watched from above, always observing. The jackal lingered between spaces, neither close nor far. They did not interfere. They did not threaten, and gradually they became familiar. Not friends, not yet, but no longer unknown. Familiarity is quiet. It does not announce itself. It grows slowly in the absence of danger, and in that absence the mind begins to rest. The camel no longer turned at every sound. He no longer searched for escape. The jungle, once overwhelming, began to feel understandable, predictable, and what is predictable feels safe. Sometimes He would rest beneath the shade of tall trees, watching the light shift above him, listening to distant movement. His body, once tense with uncertainty, began to soften. Even his breathing changed, slower, deeper. He slept, not out of exhaustion, but out of ease. And in that sleep, there were no roads, no burdens, no voices calling him forward, only stillness. From time to time, he would be summoned, not with urgency, not with command, but with a simple call, the lion, Madotkata. When the camel approached, the same stillness surrounded the king, the same presence, unmoving, certain. "How do you fare?" the lion would ask. The question was simple, but it carried something unusual, attention. "I am well," the camel would reply, and he meant it. There was no need to pretend, no need to adjust his words, because in that moment he felt seen, not as a burden, not as a tool, but as something that existed for itself. "Then remain," the lion would say, and the camel would return to his quiet routine. Days became weeks. Time dissolved into pattern, and the mind, once restless, became still. But stillness is not always awareness. Sometimes it is the absence of questions, and when questions disappear, so does caution. The camel no longer wondered why he had been accepted. He no longer questioned what held this place together. He did not ask what might change, because nothing had changed. And so he trusted, not because he had tested the world, but because the world had not yet contradicted his trust. And in that quiet space, something unseen began to form, not in him, but around him. Change rarely announces itself. It does not arrive with warning. It does not explain its purpose. It simply happens. The jungle, which had settled into a quiet rhythm, did not appear different at first. The trees still stood. The air still moved. The light still fell in broken patterns across the ground. But something subtle had shifted, not in the land, but in the balance. It began on a day that felt no different from the others. The camel grazed as usual, moving slowly through familiar ground. The crow circled above. The jackal lingered between shade and light. And somewhere deeper in the jungle, the lion hunted. Madotkata moved through the forest with the same certainty as always. Each step deliberate, each movement controlled. He was not desperate. he did not rush, because for him, the outcome had always been the same. He would find, he would strike, he would win. That was the order of things, until it wasn't. The elephant appeared without warning, massive, unsteady, eyes wild, with something beyond reason. It was not a normal creature in that moment, not calm, not aware. It was driven by pain, by confusion, by something unseen. A mad elephant. The jungle shifted, birds scattered, small creatures vanished into hiding. Even the air seemed to tighten. Madotkata did not retreat. He had faced danger before. He had defeated stronger prey, and strength, when repeated enough times, begins to feel like certainty. He advanced. The elephant charged. The collision was not graceful, not controlled. It was force meeting force. The ground shook. Branches snapped. The sound echoed through the jungle like something breaking beyond repair. For a moment, it was unclear who would fall. Claws met thick hide. Tusks cut through air. Weight crashed against muscle. The fight did not last long, but it was enough. When it ended, the elephant fled, crashing through trees, disappearing into the distance, and the lion did not follow. He remained where he stood, breathing, heavy, uneven. Then, slowly, he lowered himself to the ground. Something was wrong, not visible at first, but undeniable. His movement was slower now. His strength, well, it was interrupted. There was no roar, no declaration, only silence. The jungle listened. From a distance, the others began to sense it. The crow returned first, landing quietly on a branch above, watching. The jackal approached next, careful, measured, eyes scanning. The leopard remained farther away, still, observing. No one spoke. They did not need to, because what they saw changed everything. The lion, their center, their certainty, their source of survival, was injured, not slightly, not temporarily, but deeply. The kind of injury that does not heal quickly, the kind that changes behavior, the kind that alters power. Madotkata shifted slightly. A small movement, but it carried weight. Pain followed it. He stopped, and in that moment, something invisible began to unravel. Not loudly, not suddenly, but quietly, like a thread being pulled from the center of a woven pattern. The jungle did not collapse, but the balance was no longer the same. And when balance changes, everything connected to it must also change. Even those who do not yet understand that anything has changed at all. Silence stretched over the jungle, not the quiet of safety, but the quiet of uncertainty. The lion rested, not asleep, not fully awake. His body betrayed him, his strength diminished. The animals sensed it, some with curiosity, some with caution, some with something darker, something that had waited for this moment. The jackal moved slowly, its golden brown eyes scanning, its mind calculating. It had watched, it had observed, it had learned the rhythm of the jungle, the patterns of survival, the way loyalty and fear intertwined. It was clever, and cleverness waits for openings. An opening appeared now. The lion could no longer hunt, could no longer patrol, could no longer protect. And the jungle was hungry, not just for food, but for certainty. And certainty had vanished. The jackal approached the crow with a low whisper. Food is here, right before us. The crow tilted its head, its beady eyes narrowing. What do you mean? The camel, the jackal said, the one who grazes near the clearing. It is strong, yet helpless in front of the king. Its flesh will feed many. If we act, we can survive. The crow ruffled its feathers, cautious. King promised protection. We cannot betray that. The jackal's grin was almost invisible, a flicker in its shadowed face. Protection, it said softly, is only effective if it is asked for. We can offer a solution that benefits all. The king's need is urgent. The jungle will starve. Is it not better that the gift be offered willingly? The crow hesitated. The jackal stepped closer, eyes glinting amber. We are loyal, yes. We have served, but if no one acts, all perish. Even the king, even us. The crow's wings twitched, a sign of uncertainty, and the jackal continued. If we cannot serve the king in his time of need, then what is the point of loyalty? A single sacrifice, given willingly, solves the problem for everyone. The crow looked at the jackal. The words were dangerous, yet they were logical. The jackal paused, then added softly, "Let the king receive this gift. Let it be offered freely, and all survive. Is that not better than nothing?" The crow did not respond immediately. It thought, weighed, measured. The jackal's smile never left. Patience was its weapon. It knew the mind's slow erosion was stronger than claws or teeth. Somewhere in the distance, the camel grazed, oblivious, and the first seeds of betrayal were sown. The jungle would never be the same. not shout, it waits. At first, it is only a quiet discomfort, a small emptiness, easy to ignore. But as time passes, it grows, not just in the body, but in the mind. The jungle had changed, not in sound, not in shape, but in intention. The lion remained still day after day. His strength did not return, and with each passing moment, the others grew weaker. The crow no longer circled as far. The leopard hunted less, its movements slower. The jackal watched everything and waited. At last, the lion spoke. His voice was softer now, not from gentleness, but from fatigue. "Find something," he said. The words were simple. "Anything that I can hunt in this state. No command, no force, only need." The others bowed their heads and left. They searched through dry ground, through silent paths, but there was nothing. No prey that could be taken without strength, no opportunity without risk. When they returned, they already knew what they would say, but more importantly, they knew what they would not say. The camel was near, as always, calm, unaware. The jackal stepped forward first. "My king," it said, bowing low. "We searched the entire jungle." There was a pause, carefully measured. "We found nothing." Silence followed, not disappointment, not anger, just acceptance. The lion closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. Something had shifted, not in his body, but in his willingness. The jackal saw it and spoke again. "There is one way," it said softly. The crow did not interrupt. The leopard did not move. They were listening. The jackal continued, "If one among us offers themselves willingly, then you may accept it without breaking your word." The words hung in the air. The jungle became very still. The lion did not respond. For a long moment, nothing moved. "Then that would be wrong," he said. The words came slowly. "I gave my word." The jackal lowered its head further, respectful, patient. "Yes, my king," it said. "But if the offering is given freely, it is not taken." Silence again, longer this time. The lion did not answer, but he did not refuse again. And sometimes that is enough. The jackal stepped back, its eyes flickered. The plan was set. They gathered together, all of them, and walked toward the lion. The camel followed, as he always did, unquestioning. They stood before the king, one by one, and then the crow stepped forward. "My king," it said, bowing deeply, "we have failed to find food, but I offer myself. Take me and survive." The words were calm, steady. The jungle held its breath. Before the lion could speak, the jackal interrupted. "You are too small," it said quickly. "Your sacrifice is noble, but not sufficient." The crow stepped back, then the jackal stepped forward. "My king," it said softly, "I offer myself. Let my life sustain you." The lion shook his head. "No." The word was quiet, but firm. The leopard stepped forward next. then another, each offering the same thing, each speaking the same language: sacrifice, loyalty, honor. And each time the lion refused. The camel watched carefully, quietly. Something stirred within him, not fear, but something else, a thought. They are all offering themselves, and the king refuses. His mind moves slowly. If I do the same, perhaps. The thought settled, not questioned, not challenged, accepted. He stepped forward. The others became still, waiting. "My king," the camel said, bowing deeply, "you cannot eat them. They are of your kind. But I," his voice remained steady, "I am different. I offer myself to you." The words fell softly. "I owe you my life." And in that moment, he believed it. There are moments in life that do not feel like endings. They feel like decisions. The camel stood still, head lowered, breath calm. He had spoken his truth, or at least what he believed to be truth. Around him, no one moved. The crow watched, silent. The leopard remained still, unblinking. The jackal waited. Everything was quiet, too quiet. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath. The lion looked at the camel, not with hunger, not with cruelty, but with something else: permission. The words still lingered in the air. "I offer myself, a gift, freely given." And in that moment, the last boundary disappeared. The lion did not speak. He did not warn. He did not question, because there was nothing left to question. The decision had already been made, not by him, but by the one who stood before him. And so, he moved. It was not fast, not dramatic, just inevitable. A shift of weight, a surge of muscle, and then impact. The jungle broke its silence. For a single moment, there was sound, and then there wasn't. The camel did not run. He did not resist, because until the very end, he believed. And belief does not protect. It only blinds. When it was over, nothing was said. The jungle returned to stillness, as if nothing had happened, except everything had. place where the camel had stood was now empty. No struggle marked the ground. No chaos lingered in the air. Only a quiet shift, as if something had been removed from the pattern. The lion stood over what remained. His breathing was heavy but steady. The effort had cost him, but the need had been answered. Around him, the others gathered, slowly, carefully, not rushing. There was no frenzy, no wild hunger, only participation. The crow stepped closer first, tilting its head, observing. The leopard followed, measured, precise. The jackal came last. Its eyes moved, not at the body, but at the others, watching, learning. No one spoke. There was no need, because everything had already been explained, not through words, but through action. The offering had been made. The king had accepted, and now the jungle adjusted. Each took what was needed, not greedily, not excessively, just enough. Survival does not require emotion, only continuation. And continuation had been restored. Time moved again. The air shifted. The light returned to its slow patterns. From a distance, nothing had changed. The trees still stood. The shadows still moved. The jungle remained. The jungle. But something unseen had settled into place. A new understanding, unspoken, unchallenged. The lion had not broken his word. The others had not betrayed him. The camel had chosen. That was the story. That was the version that remained. And once a story settles, it becomes truth. Not because it is accurate, but because it is accepted. The crow no longer questioned. The leopard no longer hesitated. And the jackal was quiet, satisfied, because the most powerful outcome is not control through force, but control through belief. And now, everything was aligned again, at least on the surface. Stories that end when the telling stops, and then there are stories that begin after they are heard. This is the second kind. Nothing in the jungle was unusual. No laws were broken. No chaos erupted. Each creature acted according to its nature. The lion protected until he could not. The others served until they needed to survive. And the camel, well, the camel trusted, not blindly, but gradually, through comfort, through repetition, through the quiet absence of danger. his need to belong, his desire to trust, his willingness to believe what made him feel at peace. And that was enough, because danger